Hi, good morning. I wanted to get on here and give a quick summary of my experience last week at the California School Board Association Annual Education Convention that took place in Sacramento. One of the sessions I attended was a panel of all the candidates, most of them, for the next superintendent of our state. The one who stood out to me the most was Sonia Shaw. She spoke with such resiliency and determination to really make decisions that are going to be in the best interest of our kids, not focusing all of education on political ideology that we don't need to be worrying about right now in our school systems, when we really need to be focusing on the fact that our kids can't even read or write or do basic math by the time they get to high school. So we have bigger concerns right now that we need to focus on as a state, as a community, as parents for our kids. And how we vote matters. Who we put in leadership positions determines the outcome of so many things. And the state superintendent isn't going to make the legislative decisions, that the laws that are being passed, that are being implemented in our schools, but it's a very important position in our state. So it does really matter on who gets voted in. So I would highly endorse and I promote Sonia Shaw. I think she'll do an excellent job. The other candidates that are on the stage primarily are sorry, I'm shaking, I'm outside, it's cold, are career politicians. They were in the legislature, a lot of them, and they were part of the decision-making process that got us into this mess in the first place. So I wouldn't want them to be superintendents of our state. I don't need to see more problems persistently happening. I want to see remedies for problems. When we continue to do the same things over and over and over again when they're not working, it's insanity, honestly. So what's in place right now is not effective, and someone needs to get in there and do some things differently and be willing to stand up and challenge what's not working. And having career politicians in there, I don't think is the solution anymore. So I'm all about get a mom in there, get a mom in there at the table of decision making and let her advocate, because mama bears, well, we know what happens when we cross the mama bear. So some information that I got that I found really interesting, I like to share with you, because if I didn't know as a parent in the community before I got on school board, I don't know if anyone else is as familiar with these facts and statistics, and I find them interesting and I want to share them with you. So one thing that was interesting to me, I learned about Prop 98. I wasn't familiar with this until now, and it was established in 1988 as a California state law, and it provides a minimum baseline of funding for education. In 2024 to 2025, there was $109.1 billion set aside to fund Prop 98. California currently designates $142.4 billion for K through 12 funding. That is a combination of federal, state, and local funding. This is some interesting information about California in general, if you just want to know. There is 1,019 public school districts in our state. There are 9,997 public schools K through 12 in California. There is 1,334 charter schools in California, 3,926 private schools in California. Our California average funding per student right now is $23,519. So that's how much is set aside for every single student in California annually. Here's some of the problems that were addressed on the panel. They would like to see change in the fact that California is one out of 6 states in our nation that base school funding on student attendance, which is labeled as ADA, average daily attendance, instead of enrollment. Basically, if the child does not show up for school, the school loses that income. It's usually an average of $80 to $100 a day for that student, unless it's an excused absence. But other states will do funding based on enrollment. So whether the child is absent or there, the school still gets the funding. The problem with the ADA is that all of the lights and all of the bills, everything still has to be paid for. There still has to be resources for everything, whether the students are there or not. So it puts a financial burden on the schools. That was one of the things that was brought up, is for California as a state, do we want to stay as an attendance-based or an enrollment-based funding? And it'd be better to switch over, in my opinion, to enrollment-based, because that would make a lot more sense. And the other issues that were addressed is that we have a very high teacher shortage in our state. Classroom safety is declining tremendously, and I have a lot of opinions and things on that, on why, but we've completely changed the disciplinary system in education right now, where we're not even suspending kids or having them be sent home for things, and the chaos in the classroom is really becoming a problem, not just for some far off county, but even in our own county and in our own school district. I've heard from a handful of staff members that the safety in the classrooms is really a huge problem, and our California state laws are tying the hands of teachers, they're tying the hands of law enforcement, they're tying the hands of people from being able to promote safety. And it's, to me, extremely concerning. Not only does a child deserve to be safe in a classroom, but also the teacher deserves to be safe in the classroom. And all the other students also deserve to be safe in the classroom. And if someone's not behaving safely in a classroom, they should not be allowed to just continue in that behavior unchecked. I don't think that that's the right remedy. So that was brought up as a question for the panelists. There's a lot of overregulation in California with excessive paperwork that's putting an unnecessary burden on hardworking teachers. So they're spending so much time with the regulations and the constantly changing laws that they can't even just focus on teaching in their classrooms. And I would agree, that's insane. Someone even suggested they should hire one staff member at each school just to deal with the California regulations and all the paperwork and all the data collecting and everything. And when we have excessive overregulation from upper leadership, from the state level, it removes the ability for the local level leadership to be able to make boots on the ground decisions, in the moment decisions. And in my opinion, a lot of that excessive regulation needs to be cut, needs to be taken out, because it's creating more problems than benefits. And I would like to see a superintendent of state get into that situation and begin to address the overregulation. And I really think that Sonia Shaw would get in there and do that. So she's not the one that was voting for it on a legislative level, where many of the other candidates were. That's a concern to me. So who we vote for really matters in this upcoming election. Who is in those upper leadership positions and a voice at the table matters. And I really support the grassroots movements of a mom getting in there and being a voice of reason, one who's experiencing the effects of the decisions being made, or parents or grandparents or people within the community. We have to be engaged in local civic engagement, or engagement on a state level as well. And you might think, oh, my vote doesn't matter. It really does matter. This is our home. This is where we raise our kids and our family. This is our legacy. And I'm just as guilty of not being informed, of not being in the know. It is overwhelming. We all have so much going on in our lives. But if you can just begin to get a little bit informed and a little bit engaged, it's so much better than not being engaged or informed at all. So I will share as much information as I can with you as I receive it. I'm going to make 2 more videos on a couple other sessions that I learned about, but this is one about the superintendent of the state, and I want to endorse Sonia Shaw, and I think she would be the really best person for the job at this point. And I would love to see reform happen in a really big way in our state, because I want to see California flourishing. I want to see students thriving. I want to know that my kids have a future and a hope. I want to know that my kids can read when they graduate. I don't want to see my kids passing grade after grade after grade and they can't do the basics. I don't think that that's acceptable. I don't want my kids to be getting away with a bunch of troublesome behavior in the classroom unchecked. I want to be notified as a parent. I want to be involved in my children's lives when I entrust them into the public school system. So I know I'm not the only one. So I'm doing this school board position because it's me getting involved and engaged, and I'm asking you to do the same. Okay, thank you. Bye.